Hello! Now, I don't know if you've been keeping up with current events, but this is the third video in a series about me making this fully functional motion tracker from the Aliens film. In the first video, we looked at some of the basics of making the display work on this tracker, as well as synthesizing the sounds that it made. In the last video, we looked at the radar, integrated it and improved it, as well as adding a whole bunch of other stuff. And in this video, we're going to look at how all this fits together to make this most amazing working prop. Now, the first thing I want to point out is the way that I built this version isn't exactly ideal, and since making that I've updated some of the 3D models and I've created some PCBs to make connecting everything up much easier. There'll be links to all of that in the build guide, which will hopefully appear on my second channel before long, so make sure you subscribe to that channel too. So where did we get on this one? Well, at this point we had a working system with a bunch of wires all over the place, but it has no power, at least no standalone power. That was until I found this module. This claims to behave a little bit like a UPS. It can supply 5 volts regardless of if it's powered or not, and it does this by fitting 2 batteries in the back. I gave it a test to see how well it worked, and it held up with an increasing amount of current being drawn. And at 2.5 amps, the voltage dropped a bit, but that's not a massive issue. However, it sure does get warm, a little bit around 100 degrees whilst charging. But we can put some heat sinks on there later to help with that. Now in this setup, the Pi only drew about 600 milliamps, so we really wouldn't be pushing this board very hard. However, I noticed it had got 2 little LEDs towards one end. One for charging, and one to tell you that charging is completed. Well, once this is inside the final design, you won't be able to see these indicators. So, using hot air, I removed the LEDs. You need to keep the airflow slow or you could actually blow some of the components off the board. Once done, I soldered some tiny wires in their place. This isn't for the beginner solderer, and it's entirely optional anyway. Here you can see them in place. And to hold them in there, I've put a blob of hot glue over the top. It's important to route the wires this way because of this resistor, which gets quite hot. And here's a photo of the board and the Raspberry Pi 4, covered in heat sinks, and this dramatically helped. Make sure you've removed the batteries whilst doing all of that, just in case you make a little mistake. Anyway, with that completed, I now had on the table a fully working system, although it was a bit messy. So it was time to look at housing it, looking at the actual 3D model to put it all into. But first, I just want to give a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters, and I'm very thankful to them. And if you'd like to support me in making future videos, then please follow the link in the video description. Originally, when I had the idea for this project, I was planning on building it into a case like the detector used in Alien Isolation. What a fantastic game! The case has lots of space inside, and a 3D model for this is freely available. I even contemplated at one point putting a CRT into it. But after seeing this actual prop from this video, and then seeing Adam Savage build his own, I knew it needed to be more faithful to the original. Luckily, I stumbled upon this design, and it's a really good design with all the information you need to build your own, complete with a PDF showing you how to assemble it and what extra accessories it needs. And whilst it's a great model, it still needs quite a bit of changes to be fit for this purpose. To start with, there's no room inside for all the parts, so I spent a long time updating the 3D model and changing things to get it into a usable state. Most of that work was actually done with Tinkercad, with a few bits being manually edited in Blender to provide some of the more detailed modifications. Now, I don't know how accurate this model actually is to the original build, but they do look fairly close. Now, when I work with 3D stuff, I like to model everything properly so I know how everything will fit together. So, inside here, I have the shape of the LCD panel, volume control, and sliders, as well as the battery pack. So let me talk you through everything. This here is the Pi, sitting vertically, and the radar sitting horizontally. They're connected together using a cable, so not clipped directly on top of each other. I may release the source code for a vertical orientation as well, so if you wanted to build it that way, you can give it a try. It's certainly easier to fit that way around, just for some reason I found it less sensitive. Next up, looking at the base, this isn't just a normal knob inserted, it's actually a variable resistor, and this is where the volume control ended up. This little hole here is for a small USB-C connector that can be used to charge it. In this space here you can see I've modelled the battery pack that you've just seen, and it snugly fits in there. Looking across to the handle, and you can see there's space for a little micro switch behind the trigger button. The wire for that will run out along this route. Now, looking at the top part, the Pi will poke through into this area a little. This space at the back is where the accelerometer and analog to digital boards are located. This area here has a fan that can suck the air from the bottom and push it through here. And I've amended the model in this area so this pattern actually has holes in it. You can just about see through this. When printing this, you may need to enable the option to detect thin lines or this won't print. And this bit took ages to get right. Now you may be wondering what this weird piece is here. Well, this is an optional extra. I wanted this area to glow ever so slightly, so this will be printed using glow-in-the-dark PLA, and either side there will be 2 ultraviolet LEDs. It does make a great effect. Now, most ultraviolet LEDs actually emit quite a lot of blue light, so mostly this area will glow blue. And I'm not sure if you can see it through the case, but there it is, it's glowing quite nicely actually. This piece also responds quite well to that light, and so when the unit has been powered down it will glow green through the case. Moving on, and at the top of the tracker, this area here will house the speaker. And I've also adjusted this area as well to let the sound out. You'll need to be very careful when removing support material here. I've also made the slide switch work, which will function as a power switch. Moving over to the viewer on the side, and I've redesigned this area quite a bit. Firstly, how it connects to the main body is different, and this has to be glued in place. All of the wires now run through the middle of this as well. On top, you can see that I've adjusted this to fit a real slider, and I've modified the button for it too. This is our sensitivity slider. On the bottom, I've hollowed out the holes so the 2 LEDs can poke through. Those LEDs can actually be seen on the original, although they don't light up, so you can add these just for aesthetics if you don't want to wire it up to the little power supply board. If I remove the outer shell from the viewer, you can see how it all fits together, and where all the wires are going to run. And removing the back panel, you can see the back of the LCD module too. Removing the LCD panel and the lens, and you can see this strange black shape. This gradually gets narrower as it goes down, so you can just see the output of the LCD and not the surroundings. Originally, I wanted to mount the LCD on the front, but I couldn't find one that fitted, especially with the PCB attached to it. So I've ever so slightly increased the size of the viewer to accommodate the LCD. It's so subtle you can't really tell, but it all does fit so nicely. Speaking of the LCD, I've swapped it out for a different one. It's almost exactly the same size as the previous one, but it comes with a handy connector on the back and a suitable cable, and what's more, it has a chip select pin, so we don't need that hack from the previous video. Oh, and regarding the lens or magnifier, I've done what is generally done. I purchased one of these slide viewers. They're very cheap, and if you pull it apart, you'll soon discover that with a bit of pressure, you can break the glue holding the lens in and push it out by hand. It just so happens to be almost exactly the size needed, and it gives that glass CRT look, much better than a sheet of plastic across the front. Finally, there's a load of random pieces that you need to print and glue into place. Don't worry, it's easy, just a lot of little bits. And this piece here specifically goes over the front where the radar module is located, and I've made the front of it very thin to reduce any possible loss of signal. It took many reprints and adjustments to get everything to fit perfectly, and indeed one piece in this tracker I've been showing you is actually based on an earlier design. I've modified that to fix the issues I found during assembly, so you won't have that problem. Anyway, this leaves one long task, getting it all printed, so here are some time lapses. Look at all these 3D printed parts! These are the originals for the tracker you've seen, not the final modified pieces you'll get in the actual build guide, so don't worry. You will notice, however, that I've sprayed the top half of the viewer and its back panel as per the original. I've also included these pieces as separate bits in the build guide if you want to, so you can print them separately in the correct colours. I've chosen to print in black and brown. It's actually supposed to be an army brown colour, although I'm not quite so sure that's actually what it is. You might want to print it in green, or not worry about that at all and paint it yourself afterwards. If you want a perfect reproduction, you probably now want to spend some time sanding everything down and removing all of the layer lines. But this channel is about functionality, so I'm going to skip that part. Anyway, on the whole, I'm happy with the 3D printed look. Besides, in reality, this thing would look battered anyway, being bashed around by military personnel. And just like Adam Savage did, I will add a few little finishing touches later on. So with all the printed parts and the new components, wiring will now look like this. And note that everything is running from the 3.3 volt power supply. Well, with the exception of the ultraviolet LEDs, so there shouldn't really be too much chance of frying the Pi. Now, I haven't yet explained how I'm planning on connecting all of this to the Pi whilst the radar hat is connected. Well, firstly, I've got this GPIO cable extender, so I can rotate the radar board by 90 degrees. There's also the issue of connecting the two breakout boards to the Pi whilst the radar is connected. Well, for you, I've made this really easy and I've designed two little PCBs. The one on the left you can solder onto the back of the Raspberry Pi, and the one on the right you can solder the accelerometer and the analog to digital boards to, and then connecting them using one of those flat flex cables. You'll need to use the right type of cable and put it in the right way around, or it just won't work. This pin header here is where you're going to supply the 5 volts to the Pi. You connect up the variable resistors for the volume and sensitivity here. The middle pin is the centre pin on the variable resistor. This connector, or where there should be one, is where you'll wire the button in the handle to. And this one here is ready for you to wire the ultraviolet LEDs to. This bit runs via a resistor to the 5 volt supply. This is where the LCD panel connects to, and at least with the panel I'm using, these are in the correct order as well. And because this new panel is great, it has a chip select pin there too. I've also added a few extra bits here for you. For example, these two pads allow you to access the 3rd and 4th analog to digital channels if you fancied using them for something in the future. And this connector here is a spare GPIO connection, which might also come in handy for something else. It's up to you if you want to use pin headers or solder the wires directly. In the build guide, I've included a download to the Gerber files so you can make these yourself. However, to make this easier, this video sponsor, PCBWay, offer a wide range of PCB construction and assembly options. And right now, they're even offering a free upgrade to purple solder masks for that really cool look. Most importantly though, is the assembly service, reducing the amount of soldering you have to do, if any. Another great service they offer is their shared project library, where you can find lots of projects uploaded by other users to have made for you. And to make this project easier for you, I've uploaded both of these PCBs into their shared project library as well, so you can easily have them build and assemble them for you. Also, if you don't have a 3D printer, then you can use their range of 3D printing services as well. And whilst this project doesn't use any TPU flexible filament, right now they have massive discounts on flexible TPU. Make sure you check out PCBWay today. These boards will make it much easier for you to build, but it's not how I built mine, and you're fully welcome to follow the path that I did. The method I used to make mine is a little bit more complex. I've hacked together a design for a little bit of strip board with headers on it for everything else, and plan to solder the wires from this to the pins on the back of the Pi. Believe it or not, this is actually even a modified version from the one I used, so if you do go this route then this should be correct as well. However, the wiring for the two variable resistors is a different pin layout. This is the view from the back of the board to help me work out what tracks need drilling out, and with all that said, let's build this. with that all soldered up, I could for the first time test everything together, and as you can see, it works perfectly fine. I have to admit I was a little concerned at the time with the LCD and the radar sharing the SPI bus and whether they might mess each other's refresh rate up, but they work perfectly well together. The observant ones among you may have noticed I made a few mistakes while soldering that up and then corrected them. Well, that's kind of what happens. One other thing, those wires on the back of the Pi are so fragile, so I decided to hot glue them in place. Now, it's so easy to get hot glue everywhere, so I'm going to try a new idea I've had. I've surrounded the connector with grease-proof paper or baking parchment. The hot glue just shouldn't be able to stick to it, and indeed it doesn't. Once cold, it literally just peels off. And it did keep the glue mostly in place, although you can still see it looks a little bit messy, but those wires aren't coming off anytime soon. With that done, I guess it's now time for the most important bit. And don't worry, this is a lot easier to follow in the build guide. But it's time for a super, massive, mega construction montage. The only thing I was missing at that stage is a carrying strap and some hooks which would screw into the back. They're easy to add, and with a little bit of heat you can do this, so let's have a look at that. And with that fully assembled, we now have the final product that you've been seeing in all of these videos. In the last video, I promised you a demo of this in use, and well, I'm not sure how well this shows it, but I dragged along some fellow YouTubers and friends to a local laser quest or laser tag in Leicester, where we played a game. I also added a special data logging option to this so I could record everything it was doing and play it back later so I could overlay it in the footage. The game is about 15 minutes long, so I've assembled this into a short highlight of the best bits for you to enjoy.
Your transmission's showing a lot of breakup.
Probably getting some interference from the structure. It's firing contact. I ordered to hold fire.
See if you recognise anyone in this photo. There's obviously me, sporting that t-shirt again. Then we have Ross, from Goldfish on Games. This is Reese, from Control Alt Reese. And Andy, from Hack Build Restore. Make sure you check out their channels too. Links will be in the video description. Aside from being absolutely terrible at this game, probably from spending far too much time focusing on the tracker screen, it was actually a lot of fun, and I want to thank Lester LaserQuest for hosting us. But there's some real interesting things I learned from this. Firstly, it does work and it can see people, well, except from those who shot me from behind. However, it only really worked well when I was holding it fairly still. In the last video you saw how we added some code to reject hand motion. But with me walking around, it causes motion of similar speeds to also be ignored. In the Alien movie, however, they were all standing still when using theirs, so I guess that's fairly consistent. The other issue is the noise it makes. It's very cool, but it instantly told everybody where I was, so not really suitable for a game like this. Still, it was a lot of fun. Regardless though, this has been a very fun project and I've really enjoyed building it, and now I have 2 of them! In the video description, I've added links to everything you need to build your own, and the full build guide including assembly video footage will be on my new second channel. I've also got a great follow-up project planned, something a little bit different. Might be a few videos away yet, but if you've enjoyed this one you'll love that one. So if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, make sure you do, and hit that like button too. I hope you've enjoyed me sharing this with you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next...
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.